What's up, y'all? Today, sorry I didn't do Conjuring last night, but I'm gonna still do Conjuring, but I'm just gonna save that for Sunday. So today, since this week I rewatched Scream 5, um, and and I have some new updated thoughts. I'm not gonna review the whole film. I've already did that a year ago, but I'm definitely gonna go into like just the problems, and I have new problems. There's a lot of new problems I have, like not even just like um it's like shit I really didn't mention in my original review when I'm like rewatching. I'm just like I should have caught this shit because man. But anyway, so I'm gonna be doing that today. Tomorrow for sure, Screen Rant is Gay part would be I think it'll be 13. Um, and then Sunday we'll for sure do Conjuring 3. And if I do Conjuring 3, I might just do that like in the morning on Sunday. And then maybe Sunday evening I might do something else. So we'll see. But anyway, let's get into it. So let's start with one of my first new problems and I think this was one I kind of mentioned, but I really never talked about it long term. Nev Campbell's performance, specifically her, rewatching it, I'm just like she felt like I felt like she was phoning it in. Like Sydney Prescott is supposed to, if you've watched the franchise, you know she's a very emotional, even in 4, yet where she wasn't like as emotional in the first 3, but she still has her moments and she still showed emotion in 4. This one, she could give a fuck, dude. It was like every line she said, just she didn't care. There was no, even after Dewey was dead, it was like she had no reaction to Dewey's dying. It was just let's just get this over with. It felt like that was that kind of energy she was giving off to me. Let's just get this over with. So like who knows? Like she probably just did, because to be fair, I've seen Nev in interviews said that for a long time she didn't really want to do a Scream without Wes. So I have a feeling that they really just convinced her and she just is like, fuck it, I'll just do it. But obviously didn't care. Because it wasn't there. Every scene and also, I mean, and I know I pointed this out last year, but the scenes she's in are all scenes you've seen the trailer for Scream 5, you've seen pretty much all her scenes. It's like, she didn't even, she's barely in the movie. She doesn't really, to be honest, you could take her out in the movie, still pretty much plays out the same. Because it's not even like she is even integral to the plot. She really isn't. So it was clear just nostalgia. It's just so frustrating. Even a year later, and that's probably one of the titles, Scream 5 a year later, or over a year later. But yeah, it's frustrating because this film could have been really good. And it's like, y'all know, I said this last year, they should have just went with new characters. And that's one of the reasons, as I have my problems with Scream 6, but at least they're like, you know what, we're going to focus on the new characters, change the setting. Oh, and this is a problem, too, going to another problem I have with 5 that I didn't point out. Roger L. Jackson's performance, like his voice, he's the voice actor for Ghostface. He was not good in this movie. I'm sorry. Every, like, call scene just, I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I don't know what it, like, how really to describe it. It's like, it just didn't have, like, when Ghostface first called, there, even in like some of the other sequels, Roger L. Jackson still puts on a good performance for the voice, to where it's like, all right, this he just was not good in. It just, the call scenes, just none of them were good. Um, like the thing that obviously made this franchise was a roll call. They couldn't get any of them right. Another thing I really noticed is the pacing. The pacing's terrible. The pacing just is not good. It kind of just there's points it meanders, and there's just points like you don't really care what's happening on screen. You don't care about any of these new characters. Like these characters feel like MTV. At least 6. 6 did not fix Mindy for me. I didn't like her in this one, and I don't like her in 6 either, really. But at least 6, some of the characters from this movie were done way better. Because the characters in this, they feel like MTV characters. That's the other beef I should have pointed out. Like, they felt like MTV characters. They don't feel like characters you'd see in a Scream film. Another problem is Dewey. Dewey, they Jake Skywalker him in a way. He's retired. That part doesn't really bother me if it was just that. But the fact he's retired, he's basically a drunk. He's divorced. He's basically all the bad shit. And then we find out that he basically walks out on Gale. I didn't even remember that. So it's like he walked out on Gale. So you make him look like a piece of shit. It's like, what? Why? And then for him to die like a retard, which I have pointed out, so I'm not going to go too into that. I'm trying to avoid stuff I've pointed out already. But it's like, yeah, for him to die like that just so you can butcher his character. And, like, my God, man, like, they really kind of butchered Dewey in this movie. And I should have pointed it out way more. Because, yeah, they really do butcher his character. But going back to Sid really quick, it's, like, she has no reaction to Dewey's death. Like, absolutely none. She's just like, whatever. And it's, like, at least Gale, which I don't really have a problem with her character in this movie. She's, like, probably one of the few that's alright. But, like, just everything about this movie. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid shit I've already talked about. But I might mention it here, like the whole Sam being Billy's, that's stupid. I've explained, I've talked about that. Even just look at the screen, there's videos that talk about it. It's probably even somewhere written online that what the screen, like the first movie timeline was. Billy would not have had time to cheat. So look, I'm not going to go too into that. But it just, Scream is supposed to be like the real world, and the amount of people that are related, like that Vince guy who gets killed, who's not even a character, he's just a fake out, but he immediately dies. So what was the point? Just to say he's related to, like, because I think apparently Stu had a sister out of nowhere. Yeah. Another problem I have with the movie is the score. The score is very MTV. And yes, the original Scream was, you could argue, was MTV for the time, but it still had a good soundtrack. They focused on the score. They played like some pop songs in the one scene. Another problem that I've more noticed in my rewatch. I wasn't thinking about this at the time. It's probably because the other bigger shit was bothering me. But Ghostface's costume looks terrible. It looks cheap. It looks like if it was a cosplay, it would not be bad. But this is supposed to be like a movie. And why does Ghostface's costume look cheap? Like on all the other movies, at least the costume, like, yeah, there's even in some of the other Scream movies, like Scream 2, you have like the other Ghostface costumes. But you notice the one difference in that costume design when it's the actual killer, his costume looks a lot better. Like, it looks more high budget. In this movie, it looks cheap. The mask looks cheap. Not cheap. I mean, probably not the right word. But, I mean, I'm saying cheap in the sense of for movie budget. Like, at least Scream 6, the costume looked good. Like, they actually, like, even the mask has a little bit of detail on it. But they put detail into the costume. It didn't look cheap. It didn't look like just anybody, like, just bought. Like, it's supposed to at least look like a movie costume. Like, if that was like a fan film costume, it really wouldn't be a problem. But this is supposed to be a movie. And you don't have that in this. The MTV feel of it just really, really modern MTV, what I mean, just hurts it like bad. It like the characters, there's no tension like the original. The absurdness of the whole hospital scene, that whole hospital scenario is retarded, and I should have harped on that more. I mean, I talked about it in terms of Dewey's death, but I should, like, just in general, the whole setup. The fact that there's no one at the hospital, and I guess they could say, oh, they all were at Judy Hicks's, because Judy Hicks was killed. She's a sheriff. And her death, I mean, I'll just mention it really quick, was stupid too. Ghostface just killing somebody, the sheriff, not just anybody, by the way, in broad fucking daylight. Okay. But anyway, like, you're telling me everybody would leave the hospital? Like, everybody? No, doctors aren't going with people to the ambulance. The ambulance is supposed to bring them there. Why would that? Makes no sense. It was such an absurd setup, a retarded setup, just so you could have, like, Halloween 2, at least, like, that was a film that's set in a hospital, but Haddonfield's more of a small town, and it was, like, really late, too. That's the other thing. It was kind of the time. At least you kind of can understand why it's not as full. It's fucking, like, because Halloween 2 is the same night as the original, so it would at least been, like, 11 or 12 at night. Or no, like, not 11, like, more like 10 or 11. Like, between those two times. So pretty late, so that you can understand. This is still somewhat daytime. You're telling me that there would be nobody in that hospital besides one security guard? That whole setup was stupid. I don't think I really talked about Stu's house. That was a nostalgia bait. There was no point in doing it in that house. I didn't get a sense of, like, oh, we're back at Stu's house. I didn't really need to see his house. It's like going back to Halloween. It's understandable when they show, like, the Myers house, because that's where it all started. I don't need to see Stu's house again, to be honest. You could do a Scream in Woodsboro and not have to show his house again. Like, I don't need to see that. That doesn't do anything for me. And just, then I'm trying to, like, and I'm going to talk about the whole toxic fan thing, just because I have more things to say about it. It's just, they went that route with it. Wes Craven would not have done that. He would not have fucking come up with that shit. He would not have. And Richie's motives basically are a combination of other killers' motives. It's such a lazy way to equate just some shitty social commentary. That's really what it was. It was like, oh, fans are toxic, because how dare people love something and then equate that, if you do that, you become a murderer. Like, no, that's what killed this movie truly for me. Like, above all of everything else I've said. Even including wasting Sidney Prescott. She didn't need to be in this movie if this is what you were going to do with her. Have her just, not even, like, the fact that Neve Campbell just, every time she delivered lines, man, there was, even in the kill scene, I mean, in the final act, where people were like, and some people, unfortunately, praise that as like, oh, she's just over it. I'm like, no, she's been over it this whole movie. It's not even just this scene. It's the whole movie she's felt like that, and it's not a good thing. Like, she didn't, at least Courtney Cox somewhat brought it. Like, she's one of the few things that, at least on rewatch, didn't ruin the movie. But Dewey, they straight up destroyed his character, man. It's, when you really rewatch it, it's like, holy shit. Even his introduction gave me Jake Skywalker vibes. Like, instead of, blue titty milk, I was thinking this man, instead of blue titty milk, he's just drinking, because he's drinking, like, alcoholic coffee. So it's like, alright, yeah, so, like, I think, like, Irish coffee, basically. So it's like, come on, dude, really? Is that how you're going to introduce Dewey? I don't think I really talked about that scene where they talk about the rules. I think I kind of brushed upon it, because there's other shit I was more mad about. That whole scene was bad. It was such a bad setup. I mean, I'm not going to go into the fact that Randy had a sister, okay, fine. And some people even had a problem with that in Scream 3 just because it's like random, but at least it's like, okay. But she had a nephew and niece that it's not like we can go into the whole skin color thing. Whatever. I don't really. That's not even. My more problem is like, it's not as good. It just comes off, and even in like the new one, 6, I have a problem with it. It feels like the rules scenes now are just done out of obligation. It's just done because, oh, it's Scream and we gotta have the where they go into the rules. It doesn't hit the same. Every other movie where they do the rule scene, for the most part, besides 3, I like Randy, and some of that scene is so funny, but it doesn't, like, on a plot way, it doesn't really make any sense. The whole, he had a video already made even before he got murdered in 2, that he knew about. There's gonna be a third movie, a third of, like, yeah, that was, but whatever. Most of the rule scenes in the Scream franchise have been good, or at least decent. So it's like, in this, it's just so, I think it's the worst. It's worse than 6, but the just feels like they just have to do it. It's, oh, we gotta have that scene. It's like, it doesn't feel natural. It feels forced every time we have to do this moment in the film. None of the characters really you care about. I'm sorry, Sam is just not a good character. She's better in 6, and maybe if she was introduced in 6, like introduced like she was in 6 versus this movie. Granted, yeah, that moment where she snaps on Richie is kind of cool, but like on a visual, but it just, the whole ghost dad thing, she's just kind of a boring character. You wasted Jenna Ortega, and I understand Jenna Ortega wasn't like what she is now. So I think, because this was 2022 Wednesday, and I don't think Wednesday had even come out yet. So I kind of get it, but she should have been the main character. Especially after we had seen her in 6. I will say this, Sam's better in 6. 6 is kind of what this film should have been, besides the bad reveal there. But yeah, it just feels like out of obligation with a lot of these scenes. The call scenes feel like that. They don't actually put in it. There's no actual effort into the call scenes. Some of the best sequences in the Scream film is the call scenes. I mean, and I'm not even just talking about, like, we can go, the Drew Barrymore scene or any of the scenes from the first one with Sid, but even like the call scene with Cece from Scream 2, I really like that. That was a good one. The call with Kirby and and Emma Roberts. I mean, Jill. I don't know why I couldn't think of her name. It was like, yeah, Kirby and Jill. That was a good scene. So it's like the call scenes in this just. But yeah, I don't want to go on too long. It just I'm rewatching it. I just felt like I have some fresh problems with this movie. Why not talk about it in a video? Scream 5 a year later. Because I'd only seen that movie once. I saw it when it came out. I hadn't seen it since. And man, I didn't think I would come out with some new problems. Because it was like, wow, dude. It's so sad how much they fucked it up. Because I'm going to keep saying it. They should have just went with new characters from the jump. I didn't really need to see Sydney again. I look at 4. Granted, I'm getting to a point that maybe Scream should have only been a trilogy. But I do like 4. 4 is fine for me where it ends. If they wanted to do a 5, fine. But you have to go new characters. Her arc ends to me in 4. I think that's a good place to end that character. I didn't need to see, and not just her, all of them. Move on. You can still have it in Woodsboro if you want, but like go with new characters. But they decided to try to have their cake and eat it too, and it just didn't work. But yeah, and it's just a bad version of 4 with some of the story, the whole like kind of requel thing. It's just the remake thing, kind of what 4 did, right? But instead of remake, it was requel. It's the same thing. So it doesn't even in that sense add anything. So I just had to go into that. Figured, why not rant about Scream 5 again? Fuck it. Tomorrow, like I said, Screenwriters Gay Part 13. Because they're saying there's certain movies that have bad mess, and it's so bad messages, terrible messages according to them. So that'll be fun. We'll talk about that tomorrow, probably in the evening, or like probably the same time as this, or maybe a little later. And then yeah, so I'll be doing that tomorrow. But anyway.